Hey guys, welcome to the Investing in Carolina Beach, North Carolina call. For those of you who don't know, my name's Avery Carl. I run the short-term shop. And if you buy a property with us in any of our now 11 markets, Carolina Beach makes the 11th, then we have a whole back-end training program where we'll teach you everything you need to know about managing your property remotely. So from setting up your Airbnb and VRBO listings to how to use the property management software that you need to helping you source your local boots on the ground, like cleaners, handymen, etc. Also, if you guys are not necessarily ready to buy a property, we have a lot of education tools for you. I have an Amazon bestseller out in 4 categories, little categories though they are, because real estate investing is a very small niche, but I will take it, called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. We also have a podcast called The Short-Term Show that has about 100,000 listeners, and a YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Short-Term Shop. So you guys can kind of do some self-education as well. So I'm about to introduce our rockstar agent in the Carolina Beach area, Joe. He has actually been on the Short-Term Show. He was one of our first guests from before he came on with us. So he's a super successful investor in that market. He's done some really cool deals and he is a rockstar agent. So Joe, I will let you take over from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Avery. Thank you guys for being here. I'm super stoked about this market. I absolutely love it here. Like Avery said, I'm a real estate investor myself. And if you want to know more about me, please check it out on her podcast. I've been investing for a good long while now, and I've got 10 short-term rentals myself. And I'm really stoked to help you guys do the same thing to get to financial freedom. It's really, really fun and it's worth every second. And yeah, I want to jump right into it and kind of get into the market so that we can get to the meat and potatoes, which are the questions at the end. So I've got a really quick slideshow I want to share with you guys about buying a short-term rental in the Carolina Beach market. So I'm just going to jump on into it. Can everybody see everything good coming through? Awesome. That's what I'm talking about. All righty. So stepping right into it, about the Carolina Beach market. Basically, this is a 30,000 foot view of all the beaches that are surrounding Carolina Beach and Wilmington. So you can see right here, I've got my little cursor on Carolina Beach. We've got Wilmington right here, and we've got Highway 40. If you guys been paying attention to any of the large real estate investor pushes recently, it's been all about the Southeastern United States, really for 3 reasons: low taxes, lower property values, and high population growth. And that's really what we've seen here in North Carolina. Really big push recently for people coming here. I've got 2 quick examples of that. Wilmington, North Carolina was the #1 city in the United States for people relocating during 2020, during COVID. We also have Raleigh, Charlotte, Durham. Long story short, all these beaches are historic vacation rental markets that are experiencing a lot of growth right now. But Carolina Beach is one of the most popular ones because you continually hear that through different mediums and whatnot. And so Carolina Beach and Curry Beach are on what's called Pleasure Island. And then we also have Wilmington, North Carolina, that has Wrightsville Beach. So that's kind of the hub. Wilmington's got about 140,000 people who live here that support these beaches and the surrounding areas. But real quick, we've got our first little section of beaches, which again, I already mentioned was Carolina Beach, Curry Beach, Pleasure Island, Wrightsville Beach, and all the way up north, which is Topsail. Topsail consists of 3 different beaches. We have North Topsail Beach, Surf City, and we call it South Topsail, but it's known as Topsail Beach. All these are individual cities that have their own kind of little quirks and niches. And it's a real interesting market to invest in. Okay. And then up north, it's pretty much all the beaches that are below the Outer Banks. We have Atlantic Beach and Emerald Isle. These 2 beaches get a little bit of less attention, but that is kind of in the pipeline for change soon, because right here we have Highway 70. That is going to be changing into Interstate 42, which is going to be a direct connection to Raleigh. So if you remember from my last one, we have Highway 40 right here that dumps straight into Wilmington. They're doing the exact same thing up here in Atlantic Beach and Emerald Isle over the next few years. And so Atlantic Beach, Emerald Isle tends to be a little bit of a sleepier town. It's a different price point market, but it's also pose for a lot of growth in the upcoming years. And then we've got our beaches to the south. We have Oak Island, Holden Beach, and Ocean Isle. These beaches are really interesting because Holden Beach and Ocean Isle, they're much more traditional beaches. They're really large properties. They're week-long rentals typically. They're everything Saturday to Saturday, and you're within driving distance of Myrtle Beach, and you're also within driving distance of Wilmington. And so there's a lot of golf courses. There's a lot more traditional vacation rental properties in this area. And then you have Oak Island, which Oak Island is kind of its own little crazy town, crazy market. It's got a lot of locals, but it's also a lower price point market. And it has draws of little tiny beach communities like Southport, where they filmed, they filmed a couple really popular movies there back in the day. But that's kind of the draw for Oak Island. Real interesting market. But current state of the market, kind of where we're at down here, and our inventory, similar to other places that we're servicing right now, the short-term shop, we have a lot of competition and inventory is low, but compared to some of our other markets, it's not as competitive. Overall, these beaches, we tend to have somewhere in 100 to 150 single family homes on the market kind of at all times, and they're going relatively quickly. But it's still one of those ones that you can get in and get a deal, depending on where you're looking, which beach you want, really tailoring it to you and your investment strategy, where you want to be. Okay. Purchase prices and gross incomes. Wanted to highlight this. We've already pulled all the data from AirDNA. We have that on shorttermshop.com. Is that correct, Avery?
Yes, it is.
Great. We've got all the AirDNA data for you guys, so you can kind of see purchase prices and gross incomes, or what those gross incomes can be from individual like bedroom counts. So 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. All of that's going to be available for you guys, so you can jump on the shorttermshop.com and pull that data and kind of see where our gross income numbers are falling per beach. They're all a little bit different, but they also all have a little bit different price points to get into and different qualities for the beaches. Okay, what types of properties do people want? We're beach towns. People love beach houses. The closer you are to the beach, typically the higher gross incomes you're going to have. We also have a little bit of a higher price point on those properties, but also the more people you're able to put in this house, the larger amounts of gross income you're going to be able to generate. Some of the other beaches that are near Wilmington, you can do smaller rentals. I've got 2 bedroom and 1 bedroom units myself that do really well because we're able to funnel a lot of couples through them, and you generate a good bit of your income in the off season with your smaller ones in those particular markets. But overall, we're beach communities. We're very seasonal. We make a majority of our income in the summer, traditional long stay rental properties. You don't necessarily want to buy a property that looks like it should be in the suburb. So you don't want anything that's sitting on a slab that looks like a matchbox with vinyl siding on the beach. People are going to be drawn to the beach houses, and they're going to want to stay there. Hurricanes and erosion. In general, hurricanes are just a way of life in North Carolina. We get hit with one every so often, but we are prepared for that. We understand that hurricanes are coming. We build our properties kind of with that in mind. But we also, it's not as big a deal as everyone knows. We all see that hurricanes are coming. And then we have a couple different beach markets that have some erosion areas that you'd want to avoid. But I know those areas extremely well. And whenever you're looking at those different properties, I'm going to be able to tell you, okay, hey, this property in particular, I'm going to be able to talk you out of it, hopefully, because, hey, we have some beach erosion problems. But we're actively continuing to renourish our beaches. We've got great dunes across these areas. It's a really good market to protect you from hurricanes and erosion. And that was really it. I was trying to be as brief as possible so we could get to the questions. I know you guys have a ton of really good ones. But final thoughts, these are historic vacation rental areas. We have a lot of people who funnel their way down these major highway systems directly to these beaches, and people are moving to North Carolina, which is why we're seeing such a growth in this market right now.
Awesome. Great job, Joe. All right. So now we will go ahead, if you don't have any other final words, and move on to the Q&A section. So guys, the way this is going to work, if you see that smiley face on the bottom of your screen that says reactions, click the hand raise button and it will move you to the top like Luke is. And we will call on you. Luke, did you have a question?
I did. Yeah. Great job. Let's talk more rock, man. I love it. And Joe's a big BP guy, so we're happy, very honored to have him as part of our family. We actually met him at BP Con. Well, for the first time in real life anyway. And great to have you on board. My question is, as always, being a management guy, is regulations, and it's my understanding that they're pretty relaxed here, but give us your take on taxes, permits, licenses, etc.
Yes, regulations are really relaxed in this area, but that's something that we always want to keep our head on straight about, is that, hey, some of those regulations could change in the future. We don't actually have a permitting process. We don't have a business license. We don't have any of that. But these individual beach towns have been set up to tax the properties. That's where they make all their income, in these little beach towns. And so whenever you sign up for either Airbnb or Vrbo, they're going to automatically add occupancy taxes to your listing, which get paid directly to the county. And so there's no registration, there's no business license, anything like that in these markets at this time, but that could change in the future. So we want to keep our head on a swivel for anything that could come down the pipeline.
And just to reiterate, guys, this is basically, as far as regulations are concerned, as easy as it gets. As of right now, there's not even a business license, which is it's going to make it our easiest. I mean, not that getting a business license is hard. It takes like a minute. But that's not even the case in this market. If you're on platform, of course, using Airbnb and Vrbo, they're going to take care of your taxes for you, it sounds like, and always do your due diligence. And of course, we'll tackle that subject more in detail in Management Monday here at the Short Term Shop as well. And thank you, Avery. Go right ahead.
All right, Ryan, you are next.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the information, Joe. I'm familiar with the beaches. I grew up in the Raleigh area, so it's crazy to see how much everything has changed over the last 5 or 6 years. What are your thoughts from a rental standpoint of condos versus single family? I realize the single family beach homes, right on the water are going to rent higher, but do you typically advise people to stay away from condos, or what are your thoughts there?
It really depends on the condo complex that you're looking at. So essentially, you just need to add another layer of due diligence that you're really looking into. Okay, are these HOAs solid? Because we've got a couple of them that are really good. We got a couple of them that are not so great. And so from the condo standpoint, there's really only a few beaches that really offer condos that you really want to be renting out. Carolina Beach is one of them, but then North Topsail Beach as well is also a pretty high condo market. I typically advise people to push more towards the larger single family homes because they do perform better. Condos do have a lower price point for entry, but still you want to maintain, hey, I want ocean views. I want to be very, very close to the beach, and I want to be in a good HOA because the people who are managing that HOA are going to make or break your numbers in the long run for your vacation rental. Because if you get hit with an assessment every single year, that's just going to eat away at your cash flow. And nobody likes it whenever you lose your cash flow.
Perfect, thanks. And I couldn't find the AirDNA data online. If someone wouldn't mind posting the link to that, that would be fantastic.
I spoke too soon. It is being put online, but it is not there quite yet. But there's a possibility it will be there by the end of the call.
Awesome.
Nice.
But if not, we'll just post it in our Facebook group so you guys have access to that. Cool. If y'all aren't going to ask questions, I'm going to start calling on people, embarrass you, because I know you have questions.
Let's talk purchase prices. What's a 4-bed, 3-bath go for? Like just or a 3-bed or a 5-bed. Throw me some purchase prices.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're purchasing a property that's oceanfront, you can still find a property that's under $1 million. There's multiple ones that run through the MLS here and there, from Topsail all the way down. But for a property that's a few rows back, you're looking anywhere from that $550,000, $600,000 range all the way up to $1 million, depending on the quality of build, year, location, condition. We're looking for additional ocean views. There's a couple of beaches where you're actually able to have a property that you have an ocean view and an intercoastal waterway view. Or if you're in Carolina Beach specifically, you can get a lakefront view. We have a lake that's really great place for walking dogs, for just a real tourist attraction spot. But you're looking anywhere from that 600,000 up to $1 million range, depending on which market that you're specifically looking in.
So, and I have several in the Emerald Coast, and we don't really even want to be oceanfront in that market because those prices, those houses are like, I mean, we're talking $3, $4, $5, $7 million, and you got to charge a whole lot of money per night for that to work. But 2, 3 blocks off the beach is fantastic. In your market, you're saying that it is possible to make some dough oceanfront, or do I want to be 1 or 2, 3 tiers back?
I personally prefer to be 1 or 2 tiers back, but it is very possible still in this market to make really good money oceanfront because you've got the draw and we still have the price point because you've got the ocean views and you can bring everybody through. I've got a property that's 5 blocks back and it still does incredibly well here in Carolina Beach. And so as long as you're walkable to the beach and you've got good access to it, you don't necessarily have to have ocean views, but you're going to be able to demand those higher prices throughout the time and whatnot. And you're also going to I like properties that are going to go up in value. And that's the closer you are to the beach, those properties tend to have higher appreciation swings as well for wealth moves, as well as cash flow moves all the time.
They're certainly not building more beach, are they? So that brings me to Avery, if you don't mind, I'm just going to keep going. And I know we have some hands here, but the questions are flowing now. So now that we brought up oceanfront, what are we looking at as far as insurance is concerned? What kind of flood zones are we in? And is it difficult to get? And I would assume you have plenty of recommendations.
Yes, I got plenty of recommendations for insurance. Let's start with the flood zones. We're looking at VE flood zones all the way up to AE flood zones. And the real kicker here is if we can get an assumable flood insurance policy, because a lot of these policies have been set and have been going for a very long time. We've got older investors who had purchased primary or second homes back in the day, put in flood insurance on it, and that can be a real bonus for cost saving if we're able to assume a policy. But in general, we're looking for properties that are on stilts. If we're in AE flood zones, we can get elevation certificates and really cut down on that flood insurance cost. If you don't have that and you're right on the ground level, you're going to be looking in that $6,000 to $9,000 a year for flood insurance. And so that can be a real kicker to your cash flow. From the wind and hail insurance, that's what we call it here in North Carolina. North Carolina covers all of the wind and hail insurance up to 50 miles inland. And so if you have a regular insurance broker, they're going to have a rider policy on top of your North Carolina wind and hail policy. It's an interesting way to do it, but it pretty much keeps the competition about the same. You're going to see anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 in wind and hail insurance and whatnot, typically on a oceanfront, a couple rows back property. It can be more. It just depends on your own individual situation as well.
And I do have a coastal property in Florida. I'm like kind of almost first tier, but second tier. And I was able to get my flood zone changed from AE to X. So if anybody,
awesome.
Joe, I'd be happy to give you the engineer company I used to get that done. It was a very actually easy and fairly inexpensive process. It was the recommendation from Yona Weiss actually, and these guys were awesome. So I'd be happy to pass their information along if anybody would be interested in that. Joe, one more, any idea about how many properties are on market right now? Like, I mean, not necessarily a specific number, but if I'm coming to town and I'm ready to buy, is there something available, or do I need to wait a week or two for something to come available, or where are we with inventory?
There's definitely stuff that is available. It might not necessarily be available in the town specifically that you're looking in. If you're looking directly in Carolina Beach, we've got 10 or 12 houses that are on the MLS right now. So that's definitely something you'd be want to watch. And when it hits, immediately jump on it as quick as you can. In some of our not as crazy hot markets right now, like Oak Island, for example, Atlantic City Beach, you're going to have a few more listings that are on the market. And so my most successful clients really look in at which beach they really want to target, and they know it like the back of their hand. So when something hits, we're able to jump on it and go in, and you can kind of shock some of these agents into accepting an offer so you don't get into a bidding war if you're quick enough. But the competition is definitely not as fierce as like the Smokies right now.
Well, since you bring that up, that's a nice segue into the question that I had. So like in a lot of our other markets, in every market in the country, basically things are multiple offer situations. So how are you having to see a lot of really aggressive appraisal gaps and things like that? Or is it a little more mellow than some of the other things we've seen recently, like $100,000 appraisal gaps and things like that?
Right. So in North Carolina is one of the fun states where we have, instead of appraisal gaps and escalation clauses and whatnot, we have what's known as due diligence. And so due diligence is the best way to describe it is pay to play money. That's where you're going to put down a certain amount of money that you're not going to get back if you pull out of the deal. And so you put a certain amount down, and that allows you to bring the property off to do inspections. Well, that also means that we have what's called a highest and best period. And so instead of like appraisal gaps that we put into that, we bring our highest and best, and they expect you to be willing to bridge whatever that appraisal would be. But you can pull out of a North Carolina contract at any time for any reason, but you're not going to get your due diligence fee back. And so that's where that tends to be what institutes the strongest offers. Is the more money you're willing to put down that you're willing to walk away from, the stronger the offer is going to be. And so that's something that comes with each individual property of, okay, how competitive is this one? Can we get in with a lower due diligence? Or is this oceanfront? Is this the best area on the entire island? And are they going to have 5 offers in an hour? We got to go in heavy.
And I would assume it's the same as high country because it's the same state. So
Yes.
it's a due diligence and an earnest, correct? We're doing a due
That's
diligence
correct.
number and an earnest number separately. Can
Correct.
you dive into
And
that just a little bit? Tell us the difference for those of us that aren't used to that.
Yes. So we'll have 2 different monies that come in essentially for it. We have our due diligence and we have our earnest money, and we have a due diligence period. So you're going to put down a certain amount of money so that we can do our inspections. And then from at the end of that due diligence period, which is typically anywhere from 2 weeks to 30 days, if you've not pulled out of the contract from 5 o'clock on that date, now your earnest money is on the line as well. And so the earnest money is really the guarantee that, hey, we are going to close this loan and we are good with how the property is. That also means that whenever you're going in for, if you have a really, really competitive one, lower due diligence, like higher due diligence amounts and lower, shorter due diligence dates tend to be stronger offers when going forward, because we'll have less time to do our inspections and whatnot. And then that also puts your earnest money on the line. The exact same as the high country.
All right. So tell me a little bit about, because I know North Carolina works a little bit differently with having to honor bookings when you buy something. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So in North Carolina, we have a 6-month law that if there's a short-term vacation rental booking on any platform or through any property management company, you have to honor that booking. And so you only have to honor it for 6 months out. So if you have a property that you're buying that the individual had it listed on Airbnb, technically all of the listings that they have, all the bookings, you have to honor those for 6 months past the time, which can be tricky, especially if they're not doing a great job managing it and they have those in at a really low price. I have seen clients that buy a property, put on Airbnb, they're absolutely crushing it now, and you have to provide the same, if not better, product to people who are paying a lot less. You only have to do that for 6 months, and after that period of time, you don't have to worry about it. And there are a lot of people who are willing to step away from their reservation if you're willing to refund them, but that's something that we've got to do. We got to work that process.
And yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to ask you. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the way that would work is in any other market is I set up my listing, I give it to the seller, and then he basically directs those bookings to my listing. But again, I could be wrong here, but if the guest does not rebook with me, it's no longer my responsibility to keep track of them. I just have to give them the option to book with me. Is that the case?
Correct. So as long as they get their money back and they don't want to stay with you, that's totally up to their discretion. If they want to, hey, you're right, I don't want to stay here.
How do I navigate
ahead.
that if I go live and somebody books those dates before they get the chance, or maybe they waited too long and those dates were booked by somebody else? Is that their problem at that point, or do we not know how that works?
We don't really know how that works right now.
It's a little bit of a gray area.
You're supposed to block them out. And if they didn't block out, you're still technically on the hook for that person to come. And so now you've double booked. It's very, very gray on how that whole process works right now.
Okay. Yeah, that was my understanding, was that it was gray. And I just wanted to confirm that with you. And thank you.
Yep.
Is there any opportunity ever to like negotiate out of that with would you be negotiating with the property management company or directly with the seller? Who's on the hook for that?
So you're going to sign what is a addendum essentially for the short-term vacation rental addendum is what it's called, that says that you are going to honor these bookings. And so technically the rule is that they don't have to give you that list of people who are booking there until 10 days after the close. And so you could actually be on the hook for these people after that for the ones that are still in your booking pipeline. Now that never happens. What happens is whenever that goes, we go to them and say, hey, we need to know who's coming and which ones are booked out, and everyone gets us that information. And so you're able to see who's booked up your calendar and whatnot. But they give you the contact information for those bookings, and it's your job to now communicate with them. It's similar to like a lease agreement with a long-term rental that comes. So the lease transfers with the property management company does not technically move with it. Some of them have their own contracts that say they have like a cancellation period and stuff like that can be worked out individually with the larger property management companies. But the North Carolina general statute shows that you are now responsible for those individual reservations. And that's supposed to transfer with the sale of the property, not necessarily the management. Again, it also gets gray there because you've got multiple different contracts that can contradict each other if they have an agreement with a property management company. But that's something that we're able to work through. And the whole thing only lasts 6 months.
Meaning they may need to stay with that property management company rather than the property. Is that what you mean?
There is a chance with that, and that's the way they have their contract written with that individual, but that individual's reservation conveys with the property.
Okay, and just to be clear, when this is happening, these bookings are going to most likely, as they are nationwide, going to be undervalued compared to what short-term shoppers are going to be getting. So we kind of need to be prepared for that. Although is there maybe even a little bit of opportunity there where I can, kind of make a better deal out of it because of this?
There's opportunity with that. I do see, like you said, historically, the other property management companies, they're doing a lot lower rates. They're not optimizing their listings. So a lot of these reservations are going to be lower than what you would have booked them at, but there is opportunity to bring those people through and to like treat them really well, bend over backwards for them to get a couple 5-star reviews rolling early. But the general thing is if they're a regular property management company, they're not doing very good anyway. And so we don't see a ton of bookings unless you're buying it and it's going straight into the summer. So in general, especially if you're buying in the spring or you're buying in the fall or in the winter, we don't see close to as many reservations. And a lot of these property management companies will sometimes go in and go, hey, that's fine, we'll just move these reservations around. So I've seen that happen before. It's just property by property, case by case, depending on if they're really booking this one out or not.
And just to clarify one more time, this would be the last 5 minutes of the conversation. Same thing in the high country market if anybody happens to be shopping there. Avery, go ahead.
All right, let's take a few questions. We've had a few hands raised for a while now. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Greg Cornett from Texas. Can you tell me, other than location, are there certain amenities that are being expected or will bring a higher return on a property? So for example, swimming pools, hot tubs, usually in markets, you'll see a higher ADR. And what are the amenities that people are looking for to bring in that higher ADR?
Yes, great question. The good news is everybody that's coming here, they're coming here for the beach. They absolutely love the beach, and that's why they are coming to stay in your house. And so if you don't necessarily have some of these amenities, it's not the end of the world. Pools are sought after, but they're kind of rare because people do like to use pools whenever they're coming to the beach. I don't quite understand that, but they do. I don't see a lot of hot tubs unless there's a handful of them that are oceanfront that have them. A couple people swear by them. I've not necessarily seen a correlation between the air DNA numbers and having a hot tub available in the property. But really, if you follow the cute, clean, and comfortable, you're going to do great. I mean, looking at the enemy method on the people who are around you, like there are top performers in these markets who are doing really, really well. And they are the best people to copy. I do that with all my personal listings. I step in and I go, okay, which amenities are they offering for my like size property? I go to town. It's very easy information to get per individual location. Does that help, Greg?
Yes.
Awesome. Michael.
Hey, it's hey Avery, Luke, Nice. Thanks for having us together. Terry and I are coming to you from down here in sunny Daytona Beach, but we grew up in Virginia, North Carolina area. So coming from Lake Gaston over there down 50 all the time is terrible getting there. So I'm very happy to hear, well, to Topsail anyway, about the new road coming in.
Oh
My
yeah,
cousin's
that's gonna be
got
a fun one.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Growing up, I know the area. I had never even considered this. So when it came available, I got excited about it. I am questioning about the condos. I've always been down in South Topsail, and there's nothing down there but houses. Where are the condos you're speaking of? Is that way up
Condos
north?
are, yeah, they're all way up north Topsail. That's also the area where there's larger amounts of beach erosion. And so you really need to do your due diligence on condos in North Topsail. There's one complex in particular where that inlet is moving back and forth. And so sometimes you're fishing right off the front porch, and then other times you've got 50 feet of sand. And so you got to be careful with that one because that inlet likes to move. But that's where you really need to do your due diligence on some of those in North Topsail, particularly because that's where we're seeing most of our erosion. If you look in the news, that's kind of where everyone's talking about it at in some of the areas in the Outer Banks. But we've got a really large beach renourishment project that's kind of coming through here pretty soon, especially for Carolina Beach, Curry Beach. It's something that they were actively working for because the sand is what brings in all the money for the state. You can see where all the money comes from in tourism. It's the sand. They know how many feet of sand we need to make sure that we generate the most income for all the businesses. Like they are very pro protect these beaches.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot in Hatteras and stuff like that. It's you don't know what you're going to have next week, depending on the storm. So thanks for the information, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can I highlight real quick one of the things that Michael said? So we have a lot of NCDOT, that's our road work guys here in North Carolina, Division of Transportation. They're doing a lot of projects right now to really make it easier to get to these towns. Two of them that I've sort of highlighted already. We've got Interstate 42. That's going to connect Raleigh to Atlantic City Beach. And so that's going to cut the drive time down from 3 hours to about an hour and 45 minutes. It's going to be a straight shot into Atlantic City Beach. But we also have a bypass going in from 40 all the way up to Surf City. So Surf City is in the middle of Topsail Beach. And so it's going to be a highway that's just going to go, you're going down 40 and then you take an exit, you're going to go 70 miles an hour all the way up to Surf City. So we're seeing a lot of people move that direction for those two beaches a little more northern because we've got good highways going down to the other beaches, but those ones are going to get real popular real quick.
Great. John.
Hey, Joe, nice to meet you. I've got two quick questions. Number one, if you have a property that's, say, a block or two off the beach, is that something that you're going to have a golf cart for?
No, I've got and this will be shocking in Carolina Beach, I've got a studio apartment that's 5 blocks back, and it's one of my higher performing smaller units. I don't have any golf carts. I've got a straight shot down to the beach access. You don't necessarily have to have golf carts. Golf carts can also add additional liabilities and whatnot. So make sure you check with your insurance providers on that and whatnot, and maintenance on a golf cart and whatnot. It's not too bad. But overall, I mean, our beaches are very walkable. The only exception is there's a section of Oak Island that if you buy, they have a whole back section of the island where a lot more locals live. If you buy in that section, you need to make sure that you're near one of the really large bridges they have that goes over. They have a little section that looks like the intercoastal. You need to make sure that house is near one of those bridges, because if not, your best guess is essentially gonna have to drive like 20 minutes to actually get to the beach, even though they're only like a mile away from it. They're gonna be able to hear the waves, but not get there. That's one of the only exceptions for that. But a majority of our beaches, they're walkable.
Okay. And then when a property hits the MLS, what's the average time on market?
Average time on market, that does vary for each one, and it depends on the property type and size. And so, for example, we had an oceanfront one hit in Surf City last week, and really, really perfect property, a fantastic location. And we went all in for it. We were like, we're going to get this house. They called for highest and best. The property sat on the market for 3 days while they collected all their offers, and it was off in 4. You see a lot of that with your agents who know that they're going to create a bidding war, but in general, properties are still flying off. So the quicker that you're able to monitor and be like, this is the one, tell me why I should not buy this, is going to be your best chance of getting a property, because my goal is going to be to tell you, hey, here's why you don't want this one. And I'm going to be, hey, this is a great one. We need to move as quick as possible. That's what to make sure you're successful in this market.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. And last question, Julie.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if you could speak about beach access a little bit. I'm getting familiar with Emerald Coast in Florida right now, and there's a lot of private beach or deeded beach access and very limited public beach. Can you talk about if there are similar situations in North Carolina, or if it's all public? How's access if someone does need to drive, and things like that?
Majority of the beach accesses are public. And so they typically have like small parking lots, and then they have public beach access and whatnot. That's normally the way it goes. There's a couple areas where they have just large houses all the way down the beach. And you're going to see that more in like Holden Beach. You're going to see that more towards the end of Curry Beach and whatnot, where you have a few less of them and you have more private accesses. But that's something that's really going to depend on the individual property while we're looking. If we find one that's like, hey, this is a great location, beautiful house, but we don't have a beach access for 2 miles, it's not going to be the best move for your guests. And so that's something that we're going to definitely look at when we're going in for offers.
Okay, so that is something that you want to keep an eye out for, is something like deeded beach access or just nearby access to a public beach.
Yes, definitely. You want to still be within walking distance of these, but we do have a lot of public beach accesses. So that doesn't tend to be a problem. And I love being proved wrong on that. I've got a couple buddies who have some that are really far away from the beach and they still do great. But it's I want to be in the most desirable one so I can really push those numbers up, because I want to stay, again, you want to stay like 6 or so weeks out on your booking. And if you really demand those high prices, if you've got that premium product, those tend to be the ones that produce the most income.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, I said Julie was last, but Matt Castle, another short-term shop agent, I will allow you to close out the questions.
Awesome. So Joe, I used to live in Raleigh, so I used to track this area quite a bit. So I go up from everywhere from Nags Head to Myrtle Beach, right? So I haven't been to top 20 years. So, I mean, are there just the general commercial areas that are just loaded with all sorts of commercial activities versus the areas that are super isolated, that you might have an acre for your house, that kind of thing, and just peace, serenity, that sort of thing too?
Yes, absolutely there is. For a great example, if you're looking just on Topsail Island, if you're in Surf City, you're with the restaurants, you're at the bars, you've got all of the access. But if you want a really quiet stay, a really just relaxing, like, hey, it's going to be silent, you want to go all the way down to the very north end of the beach. And that's where you have larger properties. You've got a few less public beach accesses, things of that nature. But yes, that's definitely island specific. And you need to look for that area if you're looking for it. And we'll be able to target those individual ones based off of where you want to be for your investment strategy.
Yeah, I love those markets where you can have like a diversified portfolio if you want to own 10 homes in that one area, like, you know, yourself or something. But yeah,
that's
cool,
it.
man.
All right. Thanks, y'all. I also want to mention before we go, since there's a lot of state of the market talk, that we are filming this in February 2022, because this will be on YouTube. So I want people to understand when in time we are talking about this. But thank you guys so much for coming. If you are interested in working with Joe, if you are not already a short-term shop client, you will need to come to one of our new client consults. Che will post a link to that in the chat. It's just www.stsconsultation.com. Or if you already are a short-term shop client and you want to work with Joe in Carolina Beach, email agents@theshorttermshop.com and we'll get you hooked up with him. Thanks, y'all.